What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Cruz, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to use Soundtrap, specifically how to import and drag loops into the studio of Soundtrap. Now, this is tutorial number 2. You should already have signed up for Soundtrap through your Schoology page, Schoology class, and you should have joined your class using the class code that was provided to you. Make sure you do that. If you don't do that, yes, you could still use Soundtrap, but you are not going to be able to share and collaborate, which is one of the most important features of Soundtrap. If you don't join the class, there is no way for you to share your work with me given the instructions that are going to be provided in this video. So make sure you join using the join code or the class code that was provided to you in tutorial number 1. So let's get started. So I'm in my Schoology page right now. I'm just going to pick one of my courses, period 1. And you know that Soundtrap, when you go to your course, your music course, Soundtrap is in the bottom left of the left side menu. Click on Soundtrap. Now, one of the things about Soundtrap is that it's web-based. It does take a little bit of time when you record things or you want to stop or play stuff. It does take a little bit of time. I am going to make this window a little bit bigger. Whoa, okay, there we go. So once you've signed up and once you're in Soundtrap, this is what the page should look like. You probably don't have any songs yet, but these are the projects, and as you could see, I've been collaborating on a project with another music teacher in our district. I've been sending her things and she's been sending me things. She sent me something today, and we've been working on this one song together, going back and forth. And the way we were able to do that is that she has a specific join code that I enrolled myself into her group or her class that she specifically made so that her and I and other music teachers can collaborate on a project. And so this is why you're seeing this up here. Over here, these pink boxes right here, these are my projects. These are some of the things that I've done. This is what this will look like under my projects. Over here under my groups, this is what, if I click on my groups, it's going to show all the groups that I'm in. So I'm part of the group with this other music teacher in our district. I'm also part of the group of all the classes that I made of periods 1 through 6 of my classes. And you should be in one of those groups. You probably don't have these because I'm a teacher. This is registered to me as a teacher. Anyway, let's get going. So you should be under my projects. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to start importing loops and making music and beats and melodies and stuff. Make sure you're under my projects and let's click on Enter Studio. So while this is loading, Soundtrap is what is known as a DAW, a DAW. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. I gotta say, this Soundtrap thing is really, really, really awesome because, you know, I'm a Macintosh user, an Apple user. Macintoshes and Apples, and if you have an iPhone or an iPad, that comes automatically with a piece of software called GarageBand. But not everybody has Apple devices, so you don't get GarageBand. The nice thing about Soundtrap is that it will work. It should work on your tablet, smartphone, Windows PC or Mac, and Chromebook. So that's one of the cool things. The other most powerful feature of Soundtrap is the collaboration or the share feature. You might have saw earlier that I am collaborating with another music teacher here. We're sharing and bouncing ideas off of each other and making music together remotely. I have not met this other teacher, or I don't have to be there live on her computer to show her what I'm doing. We just do this all on our own computers. So this is great for collaborating and exchanging ideas remotely. We clicked on Enter Studio, and you should be under New Project. Make sure that is selected or clicked or underlined, and you're going to click on Music. So let's click that. So now you're in the studio. This area right here is what I like to call the main editing interface. This is where you drag your loops. This is where you record all your audio into it if you do wish to record your instrument into Soundtrap. First things first, let's title our song. So I'm just going to call this tutorial part 2, and I'm just going to put my name on it. Always save your work. Always put your name on your stuff. You don't want anybody taking your things. All right, so let's look up here. So we have our file menu. Okay, basic file menu. New, open, recent, save, export. This is going to be important. We're going to talk about that at the end. And then the share project. This is how you share your work with others. So let's say you laid down the drum part and you want to share your project with somebody that's really good with melodies and chords and stuff. You want to share that with a classmate. Or maybe you created some music on your own and you want to share that with me and you want me to audit it, or you want to get my opinion, you want to get my feedback on what you've done. Share it with me, which is fine. Okay. The edit menu, classic edit menu, cut, paste, delete, split stuff. We're not going to really talk about a lot of the things here. Undo, redo, very basic. So for those of you that did the flat.io assignments earlier in the during the closure, you're very familiar with editing. Settings, okay. Settings, not much really here to deal with. We're not going to talk about any settings in this video. And then tutorials. This is kind of like your help menu if you need help with how to do certain things and you want to do your own things. So here's some tutorials for you. Saving your work right here. What is this? Undo and redo buttons. This is, come on. This down arrow here with the line, that is to download or save your work. I don't necessarily save my work clicking this download button because it always saves it as a WAV file. You want to save your work as an MP3. I mean, you can save your work as a WAV file, but just make sure you have adequate hard disk space or hard drive space in your computer. MP3 files are usually a lot smaller. So a WAV file that's 10 megabytes will, a WAV file that's 10 megabytes, if you make that into an MP3, that MP3 is about 1 megabyte. So it's 1 to 10. So I don't recommend that you save anything as a WAV file. All right, here is where you add new tracks. Okay, so if you click this and you add a new track, you have your options here. What kind of, there's like software instruments to add on here. Maybe I'll make another tutorial on how to add software instruments and all that, and drums, and right here, voice and microphones. If you want to play your instrument into Soundtrap, it will record you. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so that's how you add new track, but we're not going to really do that with this method. You could use that method if you like. Okay, up here, if you're following where my mouse is, this is kind of like these are your measure numbers basically. Okay, so this is where you are. This is the outline of your music. So if you have sheet music, you have measure numbers. This is kind of like, these are like the measure numbers of your digital work. All right. So if you want to fast forward to a certain spot, let's say you want to start throwing some loops into measure 8, or you want to start recording at measure 8. You want to be very familiar with this cursor or this slider here. And you want to be very aware of where you're dropping the loops into. You want to make sure you're dropping it into the correct track, and you want to make sure you're dropping the loop into the correct measure, so that everything lines up. What else? Okay, so you have your play options right here. So recording. So if you wanted to record your instrument, you're going to hit that. Stop, rewind, play, fast forward. You can change the key. Okay, so let's say there's a loop, and then you want your loops to be playing in the key of good old B flat major or D major. You can change the key of the loops if you want. Tempo, you can adjust the tempo. There's a tap the tempo feature, so let's check that out. All right, so you could tap really fast, or you could tap really slow. Okay, or you could just simply type the beat number in. Okay, so let's leave that alone. there's a metronome feature. The metronome feature is really important because when you're recording into Soundtrap, let's say you're going to play your violin or your flute and you're going to record into Soundtrap, you need that metronome to make sure that you're staying in time. What else? There's some settings here. You can change the metronome settings. So let's say you want it to be a click or a hi-hat sound. You can adjust the volume of your the metronome. You can adjust how loud you want it going into your headphones or your earbuds. And then the count in. The count in is really important. I like 2 bars of count in every time I record something into a DAW, digital audio workstation, such as this. This program is absolutely awesome. You don't need any fancy computer hardware or anything like that to start recording and mixing your own ideas. All right, so let's move on over to here to the right. Okay, so down here you have a zoom button to zoom into the track or to zoom out of a track, okay, to make things a little bit smaller or wider. You have your general overall master volume down here on the bottom left. Okay, so if you want to just raise the volume up and you want to make things a little louder on all of the tracks that you've imported, it's right here. This is your master volume. It's like turning up the volume or down the volume on your computer or your radio. Okay, let's see. We don't have to worry about this. I clicked on this gear over here, and your only time signatures are 4/4 or 3/4. I mean, I wish there was kind of like a 6/8 time or something like that, but there's none of that. You're only limited to 3/4 or 4/4. I think if you have one of the more premium features, because we are only using the education edition, there might be other time signatures. Okay, look at the ruler. You can change the ruler. The ruler was the measure numbers up here. The ruler was this part up here. Okay, you could change the ruler instead of beats or measures. You can change it to time. Okay, so let's say you were recording a podcast. I don't know if you saw the podcast button earlier, the podcast selection. Let's say you want to do something kind of like what I'm doing, a voiceover or a podcast. Let's say you're really passionate about a particular subject or topic and you like talking and you want to have a podcast. This is great software to start podcasting. And you want to know how long you've been talking for. Well, then you set the ruler to time, and then as you're recording your voice and as you're speaking, you'll see the interface, the editing interface, fill up with the time. All right, so let's change that back to beats because we're going to need that. Okay, this grid size thing, the grid it basically shows you all the little tick marks. It shows you how much you want to be able to adjust the loops on your grid. We're just going to keep it on automatic because we're not going to do anything really fancy. Once you start getting really detailed and you really want to be specific in how you align loops, and let's say you want to display something off by a 16th, then yes, you're going to want to have your grid spacing, your grid snapping to 1/16 size. Not important right now. Okay, don't know what that magnet does. Okay, and then this button right here. Oh, the cycle. Okay, so the cycle mode is the loop. So let's say you want to loop something. Let's say you throw in a loop into your editing interface and you only want to audition or preview maybe 1 or 2 measures of a loop. Then you want to click the loop button and you want to adjust the loop length so that you're constantly hearing only just those 1 or 2 measures, or just that segment that you want to audition and edit and hear. So we're going to talk about that loop, the cycle button, as soon as we start dragging in loops. Okay, so when we drag loops in, so here's the part of the assignment that you guys need to work on is you need to follow everything that I start talking about starting from here on out, because this is how I'm going to see if you're using the program according to the basics of what this program can offer with regards to loops. So we have some loops here. that I wrote down, and we're going to drag them in, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. And once you're done with this assignment, then you're free to experiment with all the loops that you want and make your own music. And if you want to share that stuff with me, hey, I'm down. You know, go ahead and share your music with me. I'd really appreciate it a lot. All right, so let's get started. Over here, this purple circle up here, okay, that's your loop browser. Okay, we're going to be using that to find our loops and to be dragging that into our editing interface. Over here, this turquoise circle with the 2 people on it, that's your collaborator tool. And that's how you invite people to, this is how you invite people to collaborate or add or edit or preview the music that you're working on. So when you're done with this tutorial, what you're going to do is you're going to click on this invite collaboration tool, going to hit the invite button, and then you're going to type in my email address or my name to share your work with me. But let's start throwing in loops first. Okay, so let's click that purple circle here. Make sure our loop browser is showing up in our screen. Okay, and every time I do loops, and this is just my preference, and this is the preference of a lot of musicians that do loops, every time I do loops, I always want to start with a beat, the drums. Other musicians, they like to start with bass, and that's fine. There's a lot of merit behind choosing bass first. Totally okay. Songwriters like to use bass a lot, but for loops, I like just throwing in drum loops, drum beats first. So we're going to start with that first. So the first drum loop that I want you guys to start working on is Night Train. Oops. Night Train 3. All right, so if you just type in Night Train 3 in this little search bar up here, okay, there it is. You'll notice that there was a little play button right here. You could pause it to audition and hear and listen to what that track sounds like in advance. Okay, let me turn up the volume on my computer. Okay, now we want this loop, so I'm going to click this loop and I'm going to drag it right here up against measure 1 in the add new track. And you'll notice that when, turn this off, every time you drag in a loop, it plays it for you. Now you'll notice that the add new track, it changed to drums, Night Train 3. All right, and you'll see if you hover your mouse or your cursor over the drum loop, you'll notice that it says drums Night Train 3. Okay, so for this assignment, this is what I want you guys to drag in. Okay, and like I said, after this assignment is over and you want to mess around with it, and you want to make another project and mess around with whatever you want, go for it. But for this assignment, this is what I want to see you guys doing. Type it in, Night Train 3, take the track, take the loop and drag it over. Okay, now remember that cycle button up here at the top right with that circle. Okay, you'll notice that right now that it's activated. Right now the cycling or the looping feature, the literal looping feature, is deactivated. So this loop will play over and over and over again. Okay, and then when it gets to the end of measure 8, it's going to bounce right back to measure 1. So measure 7, measure 8, and bounce back to measure 1. Okay, if you disable the cycle feature, the cycle tool, if you disable that, all right, after measure 8, it goes into measure 9, and at measure 9, as you can see, there's no more music. So check this out. Measure 8, measure 9, no music, no sound. Okay, so if you want to keep on replaying what you're throwing in, if you want to keep on playing all the loops that you keep throwing in, then you want to make sure that the cycle is on. I said earlier that let's say you just want to audition a particular segment of your loop, let's say measures 1 and 2. Okay, so adjust the cycle tool. Okay, make sure your double-headed arrow is appearing and adjust that just to up to measure 3, let's say. All right, hit play. and it'll only cycle measures 1 and 2. Measure 1. Measure 1 again. Okay, so let me readjust the cycle tool to measure 8 full measures. Okay, let's stop that for right now. The next, after I throw in drums, the next loop that I like to throw in is usually bass. Okay, so drums and bass, that's usually your foundation. Okay, so the next loop I want you guys to throw in is something called Jazzy 2. All right, now there's a lot of instruments called Jazzy 2, so you want to find the one that says bass, Jazzy 2, and let's drag that over to the second track. You're going to make a second track and drag that all the way to measure 1. Now, if you try putting that in the first track to the drums track, you're going to see this wrong track type. Please drag to a different track. Just put it right underneath the drums right here in measure 1. All right. Now you'll notice that you could put the bass there, but then nothing's going to line up. All right. So let's make sure that our loop begins right at measure 1. Okay. Let's look at our loops real quick. If you hover your mouse over the loops, okay, let me highlight some really important things. You have the name of the loop. Okay. And then right here, so drums, Night Train 3. Bass, Jazzy 2. You'll notice right here that it says AM. That means that it's the key of the bass is in the key of A minor, and you'll also see that right here in the track header. Okay, the track headings, that it's in the key of A minor. That's really important. You want to make sure that all the loops are in the same key, or else your music's going to sound weird. If you have bass in the key of A minor, and then let's say you have the piano in the key of B flat major, it's not going to sound okay. It's not going to sound good at all either. All right, so this is this. You'll also notice at the top right of the loop is this other cycle loop icon. Okay, you'll see that it says loop there. You can click on that and you can extend the length of the loop. So let's say you want to make this 12 measures long rather than the 8. You could drag it all the way to the beginning of measure 12. Okay, the beginning of measure 13. All right, so for another 4 measures. Or you want to drag this all the way to measure 16. Okay, the end of measure 7, the end of measure 16, for example. All right, so you can adjust the length of the loop so that everything lines up. All right, and then you have the edit button. Okay, so you can actually edit the name of the loop. All right. So let's say you do create a loop and then you don't want the name of the loop that you have. You can edit it. This is going to come in really handy. So let's say you are collaborating with another student, okay, and you want to just say that, hey, my name's James, I made this bass part, okay? So you can edit the name of the region or edit the name of the track. Okay, I'm just going to hit cancel because that's not important right now. So there's that, the edit. You can do fade in, fade out. You can reverse the loop if you want, if you're brave and you want to check out how that works. There's an auto-tune feature that we're not going to talk about. There's a voice transform. So let's say you want to transform the voice of the bass, okay, and you want to transpose it up 2 octaves, down an octave. You want it to have more of a robot or harmonization. You want to go ahead and mess with that kind of stuff if you want. But that feature is available, and that's really cool. All that automated stuff. Okay, you can transpose, you can change it to a different key if you like. All right, so there's all these cool features when you throw in a track. And you know what? We haven't even read a single note from some sheet music. We're just throwing in the prefabricated musical stuff that's in Soundtrap, all this free stuff. We're just throwing it in, making music. All right, so we've thrown in drums, we've thrown in bass. Now, what's the next thing we always do? We always play back what we've got. All right, so I'm listening to this, and the bass is a bit too loud for me, okay? So I'm going to lower the volume of the bass. I'm going to go right here to the left side of the track where the instrument is. I'm just going to lower the volume of the bass. All right, that sounds a little bit better. I think the drums are a little bit too soft, so I'm going to turn up the volume on the drums also. These drums are a little bit soft. Okay. You'll also notice that it keeps playing over and over again. So once it gets to the end of measure 8, it's going to go back to measure 1 because my loop cycling is on. Okay, so that's all we have so far. Feel free to adjust the volume and mix how loud and soft you want some of these instruments or loops to be. Okay, the next loop that we're going to throw in is we're going to throw in some congas. So this one's called Viva Conga 12. All right, so find Viva Congas 12. All right, let's preview it first. Let's hear it. Okay, so I'm going to take this, click, and drag it into a new track. All right. Let's rewind, put my cursor back to the beginning and measure 1. So the third track you're going to create is Viva Congas 12. All right. Viva Congas 12. In my opinion, I feel like the congas are a little bit too loud, so I'm going to lower the volume on this one. All right. So there we go. Looks like we have some lounge chill music going on here. All right, the next loop that I want you guys to throw in is a piano loop. All right, this one's called Kingston Rhodes 2. Okay, let's listen to that. Okay, I don't know if you're able to hear that because my microphone is not near my speakers, but that's the Kingston Rhodes 2. Let's drag that in. Let's create a new track. And you know what the cool thing is you know these loops, they're only 2 measures, they're only 4 measures long, and what it's doing is it's matching the length of the other loops that I've created, which are 8 measures long. All right, so let's preview everything that we've got so far. Okay, so like I said, I think the piano's a little bit too loud. I'm going to lower the volume just a little bit. All right, so again, right here, you got all these volume knobs for each of the tracks. You can adjust that however, which way you want, okay? So, and you know, this is, you know, like kind of like band and orchestra, you can balance and blend. This is the balancing and the blending, okay? And making sure that not one instrument is louder than the other, unnecessarily loud or unnecessarily too soft than another instrument. It's just the right amount, and when you mix them all together, it's just right. So feel free to experiment with that. Okay, and then there's one more loop that we're going to throw in, and it's a sound effect, and this one is called SFX Orb 2. Okay, let's see, one more matches from free sound. Oh, okay, it's the doorbell sound. Anyway, SFX Orb 2, let's listen to it. It's just some sound effects. So we're gonna drag that in right here. Again, right up against the beginning of measure 1. You don't want to be off a little bit, like that much. You don't want to be off a little bit. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if it makes sense to do that to you, for your musical taste, then go for it. But I just like everything aligned up to the beginning of measure 1. All right, so let's listen to it and adjust this orb sound to the volume of the orb sound with the rest of the other instruments. All right, I'll just lower that volume a little bit. All right, so now we've got a loop with 5 different tracks. Okay, and I've leveled everything out. So let's look at these track headers right here. Okay, and let's look at that. So you'll notice right here that there's a letter R in the beginning of each track. That's your that's to enable a recording mode. So let's say you want to record a drum track, a drum loop, given these instruments, given these sounds. Let's say you want to record a drum track, okay, and use a drum a pattern maker, for example. Okay, so let me just go here to measure 9. This part is not important, by the way. But let's say you wanted to record something. I'm going to click record. I'm going to arm it and make sure that the R is set to record. And the next time, and if I hit record over here, I'm going to be able to create some drum parts on my own. Okay, I'll leave that to a different video. You're welcome to experiment with that in a different project, not on this assignment. Okay, so there's a record feature, for example, if you want to record your own drum part given the drum instruments provided in Soundtrap, or bass, or whatever other instruments that are here. So that R is going to be really important. We talked about the volume now for each instrument. Okay, we just talked about that, and you'll notice that my levels for each instrument are different because, you know, like I said, the truth about balance and blend in band and orchestra is that some instruments have to be louder than others, some have to be softer than others. So this is that. You don't want to have everything cranked up really high or everything really low and it just sounds out of balance. So feel free to experiment with the balance. If you turn in an assignment to me, when you share this assignment with me and you've got these things turned at different levels, and you know, that's up to you. I'm not going to ding your grade on that. Okay, the next thing is the headphones icon. The headphone icon is to solo a track. So let's say you are playing your loops. You're playing your loop and you just want to hear that orb track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the headphone icon, and all we're listening to now are is the orb sound effect. Okay, so that's that. Everything else is muted, and all I'm listening to now is the orb soundtrack. Okay, now I'm going to unmute everything else, and I'm going to hear everything put together. The next icon is the mute button. Okay, so let's say I just want to hear specific instruments together. Let's say I want to hear only the sound effects and the piano. So I will mute the other 3 tracks, and I'm only hearing the Rhodes piano and the orb sound effect now at the same time. And you know, now I can determine if one thing needs to be louder than another, or I can determine if these are actually being played in time. Do I like the way this is sounding? And what's nice is I'm not being distracted by the sounds of the bass, or the drums, or the congas. Okay, so these are really very important tools when you're recording or playing with loops. Okay, let me just unmute those things. Okay, and then the last part, this is a limited thing, is the automation tools. Okay, you can adjust the pan or the sweep or the volume of your tracks. The only problem is you only get to automate one track with this education edition that you guys have access to. So we're really not going to talk about automation. I'm just going to turn that off. All right, so you're welcome to mess around with that if you like on a different project. So we are now done throwing in loops with this assignment. Okay, like I said, if you want to play around with the other loops that are here, that are available to you for free on Soundtrap, okay, I mean, I just keep on scrolling. There are so many bass loops available to you for free. Okay, like the possibilities are endless. If you want to just do jazzy stuff only, and you only want to filter through the jazzy loops that are available, that's cool. Let's say you're into let's say you're into I don't know, hip hop. Okay, here are all the loops that are that Soundtrap thinks are hip hop loops. Okay, if you want to play around with that in a different track, in a different project, go for it. Okay, so these are all the loops. Drums, Night Train 3, bass, Jazzy 2, percussion, Viva Congas 12, piano, Kingston Rhodes 2, and sound effects, SFX Orb 2. Make sure you drag those in. You're going to have an 8 measure assignment, so make sure it's 8 measures long. Okay, so what do you do next when you are done? Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to click on the collaborator icon, which is this circle here with the two people in this little circle. You're going to click on the collaborator icon and you're going to click invite. And then you're going to type in my name or my email address and then click invite. For example, one of the music teachers that I'm collaborating with, okay, her name is Monique. Okay, I just got to find her right here. That's kind of like her email address, and that is her name right here. Okay, so you might find other, let's see if there are other Jonathan Cruzes. Okay, there's only one other Jonathan Cruz, and I'm definitely not Jonathan Cifuentes de la Cruz. Okay, so you don't want to share it with that person, and besides, this person is not even in your group. So even if you try to send that as an invite, you'll get this error message saying this person is a bit picky with the invites. That's their fancy way of saying that they're not going to accept an invite from you. Okay, so make sure that when you type in my name, you can either type in my email address, my district email address, or you can just type my name in. Okay, and in the pull down menu that gets populated, you'll see mine, and you'll see my district email address. Okay, so type my email address or my name here in this field and then click invite, and then I get a message in my email saying, hey, so and so James is sharing an assignment with you or a project with you, and then I get to preview it, and then I get to see if you did these things correctly. Okay, couple more things. Make sure you're in the key of A minor. All right, so when you drag the bass in, make sure that you see AM right here, A for A minor. Kingston Rhodes 2, this automatically gets put in the key of A minor. That's another cool thing about Soundtrap, is that it automatically changes the key of the loops to the key that you're already in. All right, and then the orb 2, make sure it says A sus, meaning it's an A suspended chord which fits in the key of A minor, which is fine. You don't want this orb to be in a different key. It's going to clash. Another way to make sure that you're in the key of A minor is if you go down here, all right, make sure that you're in A minor. The tempo, I don't care about the tempo. If you wanted to hear this at 180, let's say you were messing around with it, let's click adjust. It's asking if I really wanted to adjust the tempo. And then you click play. I mean, that's fine. It's up to you if you like it that fast, but I liked the tempo that I had earlier, which was 104. Okay. Metronome, make sure that's it can be off for right now if you like. The metronome on is going to be really important when you start recording. You're going to play your instrument into Soundtrap. Okay, so you want to have the metronome on, and then if you want to experiment with recording into Soundtrap, let's say you want to play your instrument into Soundtrap, you want to record. You got to make sure that you have headphones, or else the microphone computer is going to pick up the click of the metronome, which we don't want being played into the recording. So you want to have earbuds or headphones when you record. You finish the project, you finished the loops, you finished balancing everything, collaborate, invite, put my email address or my name in, and make sure it's the correct one. You're doing it correctly because, number one, you're able to send an invite. If you're not able to send an invite, you're probably sending it to the wrong person. Okay. Second, you're doing it right because you signed up to Soundtrap and you joined the group given the group or class code that was provided to you in tutorial number 1. All right. So there's that. You can actually share by clicking share up here. It's the same as doing invite. Okay. Last thing. So file, you don't need to do this for me, but if you do want, let's say you do make a loop and you're like, hey man, I can't believe I made this. I like this. And you want to save it. Okay. You can go file and go to export and export to MP3. Okay. And then you can take that MP3 file, you can put it in your phone, or you can put it in your iTunes, whatever, and you can have your own music playing. Okay. Couple other things, you can export some of these tracks, the MIDI tracks, which were the loops. You can export the MIDI tracks to flat.io. So if you have a flat.io account, go ahead and experiment with that, but that's not really important. I said earlier, the export project to WAV file, don't worry about that. You can save it as a WAV file, but just keep in mind that WAV files, I think, are 10 times larger in file size than an MP3 file. So if your MP3 file is 1 megabyte, you can count on your WAV file being 10 megabytes. And that file size starts adding up really quick. So do save it as an MP3. Saving your work, make sure you have to save your work first. Okay, by the way, you have to save your work first, okay, before you can export as an MP3. Okay, just FYI. Okay, so make sure you put in these loops. Okay, you put in these loops, the loops that I just talked about, and then you go to the collaborators and invite me to see your project. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you send me an email through Schoology or through my district email. It's really important. Please do not assume. If you are confused, do not assume that you're doing this correctly or that you know what you're doing, because if you assume and you end up doing it wrong, I just send the work right back to you and you got to do it all over again, which is going to take up more of your time. So do it right the first time. If you get stuck, you got to email me. As far as getting stuck, usually I can troubleshoot and tell you what needs to be done to fix things. But usually if you send me what you have and you just share with me what you have, I can usually, just by looking at what you've done, I can usually pinpoint the mistake that you made or the step that you skipped I can tell you what to fix. So usually it's harder for me to troubleshoot or fix things that I cannot see. But if I could see what you if I could see the work that you submit or you share with me, you have a better chance of me giving you more accurate information on how to fix your work. I want you guys to have a lot of fun with this. You'll notice that we did not read a single note from a treble clef, alto clef, bass clef. We didn't do any of that. We just dragged in prefabricated musical ideas from the Loop browser into the Soundtrap editor interface. We just had to line it up. We just had to tweak the balance and the volume, and we have this cool little chill jazz lounge lo-fi music. I don't know what it's called these days. Do this assignment, and then once you're done with this assignment, go ahead and experiment with all the cool other loops that are available to you. All right. Okay, so that's it. Have a lot of fun.